born in 1866, and he died in 1963 at the age of 10 years old. 97 years old. And he was 10 years old at the Battle of the Little Bighorn. So when he was a young man, him and his wife and his son were killed by lightning. And while he was dead, 4 days passed before he woke up. He woke up on the day he was going to be buried. And so while he was dead, these four elderly men, these Wichakchala kakas, took him to a teepee, and they showed him a way of doctoring. They showed him an altar from which to doctor. And each one of these old men turned into medicine and back to old men again. And then they each gave him a song. So he would sing these 4 songs before the beginning of whatever type of doctoring he was doing, whether it was in the sweat lodge, the inipi, or inside the uipi ceremony, the lawampi ceremony. And he eventually got to the age where he no longer performed the ceremonies because of his age, but he still made prayers for people and gave them direction. And he administered herbs and medicines, the ones that he was shown. So this is the story of the Sundance and how he told me. So I'll share the story with you now and the lessons that go with it. Can you see that on the screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So the story goes, it says, in their winter camp, the Lakota were hungry and the little children cried for meat. In a visitation, a holy man was told that if a man would go to the west, he would be taught how the people could get food. So at the council, a young man offered to go, so the people gave him a pouch with a little food in it. He went westward and saw an old woman. She asked him for food, and he gave her his pouch. She ate ravenously, and he thought she would eat all his food. But he sang a song of joy and looked westward while she ate. She watched him, and then when she had finished eating, she returned the pouch to him and told him that she was Wakanka, the old woman. And because he had cheerfully given her all his food, she should never be hungry. She looked at the pouch, and in it was full of good food. Even after it remained full, no matter how often or how much she took from it. The old woman said that the weather was cold and the snow deep, and no one would travel except from necessity. So one of our spiritual laws is Hawa'unshila. So what he did was he gave her what he thought was his last food, because he was pitied her as an old unchi, as an old woman. So the teaching in that, which we can utilize every day, is there's a saying among our people that dua Wakan is dua ohun oyake hanta hekta kya yamani kegle you pass yekchuk de lo or yekchuk de ye, they say in the female gender of speaking. So what it says, what that translated to means, if you pity something, pity somebody and help them, you will return, giving it back to you, it will be returned to you threefold, is what they're saying. So, and then there's another saying among our people that when people come to your home, you feed them. No ko ichete eta yekshu no wichak o ash heshanukte. So what it means is ichete eta yekshu hanta means if you take the food that is you is meant to eat yourself, in other words, taking it from your mouth and giving it to them, not really literally taking it out of your mouth, but what you were going to eat, you gave to them. So that's what you're supposed to do when people come to your home. So you give up what you have. And so even if you don't eat, just so that your visitors and your relatives eat, that's what it means. That's the teaching. So she blessed him in two ways. She gave him a Wakan that never ran out of food. And so she also told him that the old woman said that the weather was cold and the snow deep, and no one would travel except from necessity. So the concept of that there, the teaching for our everyday life is we help the poor people, the old people, the ongeshni, like what we say in our language, the infirm. She then gave him a robe made of woven rabbit skins, very light and very warm, and moccasins lined with otter fur, the soles of which were thick and springy like a bow. She told him to go to a hill in the west, and there someone would tell him where to go. She went as she told him. He went as she told him. The robe was so light that it kept him from sinking in the snow, and the soles of his moccasins so springy that they shot him forward like an arrow. Soon he came to a hill and saw an old man sitting on it. The old man said he was very cold, for he had no robe. The young man gave him the rabbit skin robe. The old man said, I am Wazi, the wizard. Because you have given me your robe, you shall never be cold. He told him to go to a cave, and someone there would guide him. But if he should see a young man, not to listen to him. The young man went westward. The weather was warm and there was no snow. He saw another young man going westward and soon overtook him. This young man asked him where he was going and why he traveled so fast. The young man did not answer and continued to travel. The stranger traveled with him, and as fast as he did, asking many questions, but the young man would not speak. Then the stranger said he could tell how the young man could travel so still faster. When the young man asked how that could be done, he said that his two moccasin soles made him travel fast, but that if he had 4 moccasin soles, he would travel twice as fast. The young man asked how he could have 4 moccasin soles, and the stranger said it was easy to make 4 moccasin soles from the 2, for if the 2 soles were cut into halves, there would be 4 moccasins. The young man cut across his moccasin soles and made 4 pieces of them. But when he put his moccasins on, the soles would not spring, and he could not travel no faster than he could before he had the magical moccasins. Then the stranger laughed loudly and long. When the young man asked him who he was, he said he was Iktomi, and that when the people told about the young man who went to go get meat for the children, they would laugh because he cut the soles of his moccasins. So that teaching there is wakizomi. So you will, throughout your life, you will meet people who will try to fool you in this way, or as they say in nowadays language, get one over on you. So wakizomi is a way of like fooling you and taking something from you. So you will meet these people, and that is the lesson in this part of the story that we will encounter in our lives. So now the young man felt ashamed, and he took his pouch and food into his hands, for that was all that was left of what the old woman had given him. When he took it in his hands, it rattled like a rattle, and he shook it towards Iktomi, causing Iktomi to flee in terror. Then the young man laughed at Iktomi and went on his way toward the cave. When he came to the cave, he saw a new teepee beside it and stood looking at it. A beautiful young woman came out of it, took his hand, and led him through the door. and sat him on the man's seat in the teepee. She then sat at the women's place, finishing a pair of moccasins. The young man was so surprised that he only stared at her. When she had finished the moccasins, she said that now she had husbanded her teepee and had made moccasins for her man. So she gave them to the young man and bade him put them on. He did so, and then he asked her who she was. She replied that she was his woman and would serve him as long as he would abide with her. He then told her that the children of his people cried for meat, that he was going to the west to learn how to get meat for them, and so could not stop and abide with her. She said that she led him by the hand through the door of her teepee and seated him at the man's place in her teepee, and thus bound him to herself, and that by putting on the moccasins she had made for him, he had consented to be her man, according to the customs of his people. The young man said that he could not let the children of his people die of hunger, and that he must go and learn how to get meat for them. She replied that he would abide with her in her teepee that night. She would go with him and guide him to where he could learn how to get plenty of meat. So the lesson there is a word from the word Wiwayaŋg. So this woman, even though because of her beauty and because he came to have feelings for her, she tried to pull him from his path of what he was supposed to do. So even though he told her that he didn't want the children to go hungry, she still wanted him to stay there and forget about his mission. So that's called Wiwayaŋg in our language. So the old people give this teaching that when you're on a path to a goal to accomplish something, there will be Wiwayaŋg and your path. There would be things that would pull you off your path. There's many things, and they say to be aware of them and always be cognizant of these things that will pull you off your path. The young man stayed with her that night. In the morning, they traveled together in the cave, she guiding. Thus, they came down to where the buffalo people lived and found them dancing. The young woman gave her man a whistle and told him to dance with the buffalo people. He did so, learning how to dance as they did. Then his woman told him to sit with the drummers, the people singing. He did so, learning the songs they sang. When the dance was over, the woman told the young man that the buffalo people had been dancing before the sun because they wished the sun to do something for them, and that when they pleased the sun in this matter, the sun would do that which they wished to be done. Then she took her man's hand and led him to the teepee of the chief of the buffalo people, and told her father that she had led this man through the door and seated him at the man's place in her teepee, and that he had put on the moccasins she made for him, that the little children of his people cried for meat, and he had come to learn how to get meat for them. The chief told him that as he had accepted his daughter as his woman, he thus became the same as a buffalo man. Hence the chief would tell how the buffalo people pleased the sun so that the sun would give them what they wanted. He said that when the people danced as they did when the young man came, it pleased the sun, and he would give what the people needed. He then told the young man to return to his people and tell them that if they would dance, they would vow to dance before the sun when the sun was gone, and ask the sun for meat. He would give them plenty of meat. The young man returned to his people, and his woman went with him. He told his people all that he had seen and all that had been told him. And the people vowed to dance before the sun when the snow was gone. Then the holy man asked the sun to give them meat. Then the buffalo woman stood before the council and told them to have all the men prepare for killing game, and she would guide them to where they could kill enough to give plenty of meat. When the women saw her stand before the council and heard her speak, they raised a great outcry and said that she was the two-faced woman, and wanted to entice their men away from them, and called attention to her brown hair and blue eyes as proof that she was a wicked being. Then the men doubted her. The young man stood beside his woman and said he was wearing the moccasins that she made for him, and he wrapped his robe about her and himself. He said that there was meat for the little children, and if the men were afraid to go and bring it, he would go with his woman to her people. Then the holy man stood before the people, and they were silent. He filled and lit a pipe and smoked it. Then he filled and lit the pipe and passed it. And the council smoked in communion. While they smoked, he made incense first with sage and then with sweetgrass. Then he stood and the people were silent. He said that those who would not do as the young man had told them should suffer. Then the council ordered that all the men prepare as if for the chase and go guided by the woman. She guided them to the other side of a hill, and there they found a great herd of buffalo. The men killed until they were satisfied. The women had followed from the camp, wailing the songs that are sung for one who is departing on a perilous journey. But when they came to the top of the hill and saw the men killing, they hurried back to the camp, shouting and singing joyfully. They brought their implements and made meat of the dead buffalo. There was meat enough for many moons. The women prepared a great feast, and when all were feasting, the woman stood, and the woman painted the parting of her hair red, and the holy man painted a red stripe across her forehead, thus making her the daughter of the people. The young woman stood beside her, wrapping his robe about her and himself, and the young woman sang songs in praise of them. So in the Isnanti Awechalompi, the coming of age ceremony, the young women are still painted in this way, and it comes from this story of the Sundance and this teaching. So the young woman, her part is painted red, and then the buffalo skull that is used in the Isnanti Awechalompi, the coming of age ceremony for the young woman when she first has her first monthly cycle. So that buffalo skull is also painted a red stripe down from the forehead down to the tip of the nose on the skull. So this is along the lines of this teaching here in the story of the Sundance. So the raccoon moon came and the snow was gone and the people went their ways. Only the young man, his woman, and the holy man remained at the place of the winter camp. The young man sat with his robe over his head, for he had reminded the people of their vows to dance before the sun. They had replied that they had plenty of meat and soon they could hunt the buffalo and get more. Thus the young man was ashamed of his people. So today we encounter this. A lot of the medicine men notice for a fact, or the holy men of our people, is that when people are in crisis, they make vows. And then when the crisis pass, a lot of people try to forget their vows and not fulfill them. So this part of the story here is a teaching about that, how that when you make your vows that you need to fulfill them, because it's like you're fooling the spirits and you're fooling Wakan. So the people hunted but found no game, and their meat was all gone. Then they remembered their vows and come to ask the holy man what they should do. It was then that the moon of ripe chokecherries. The holy man told the people that they had not been sincere when they vowed to the sun, and that now they must manifest their sincerity by causing their blood to flow from wounds and fulfill their vows by dancing before the sun. But because the women had doubted that the sun would give them meat, they should not dance before the sun, the face of the sun. Then the buffalo woman showed the people how to make the camp circle in the dance lot, and the young man taught the men the songs of the dance. The buffalo came and there was plenty of meat, and the woman showed the women how to prepare the buffalo tongues for the feasts. The holy man told them how their blood must flow and how they must suffer because they had been insincere. When the moon was round, all was ready. The women gave feasts and the men danced before the face of the sun. And the sun was pleased since the time when a Lakota very much wishes for something, he vows to dance the sun dance. If the sun will give him what he wishes, if he does so, he should dance the sun dance when the choke cherries are ripe. So this is in the concept of what we say wokichunze. So if your relative is sick or you have some kind of hardship in your life, then when you go to a holy man and you make a vow, they say hoya ichya or ichunza, then you're making that vow to pay back to the creator for what was given to you. So that is called a wokichunze. So that comes along with the teachings from the Sundance, and it's something that we practiced to this day in our daily lives if you follow the traditional ways. So when you go to a holy man for help, you must make that wokichunze. You must do some of the suffering yourself to give back to the creator for what you're asking for them. It isn't all on the spirits. It's not all on the medicine man. It's on yourself also. So this wokichunze is important. So if you make a wokichunze, then you say ichunze, vichasha kihe ichunze, wiyaŋg kihe ichunze. So the teaching is not only with the Sundance, but it's also, you can make a wokichunze and go on a hill and suffer on a hill and fast and give thanks. So these things are important in the teachings of the Sundance because they're still applicable today in our lives. So this is the story here of the Sundance and how it came to us. So this man that made this journey and brought the Sundance back, his name was Najutila. So Najutila went for 7 years. He went for 7 years, and he got the Sundance. So he made a 7-year journey in the to get the Wiwayaŋg Wac. And every year he went, he would go for 4 days and 4 nights. And each time he went, he got a song. So at the end of 7 years, he got 7 songs, and that's how they started. So to this day, we still have those 7 songs. We still sing them. We brought those songs into the modern times when we came upon the reservations. These old men still remember these songs, even though our ceremonies were outlawed by the Indian Offenses Act of 1878. These old men still remember the songs and the Sundance and how it is done. So you see here a 28-pole lodge. This is how our ancestors danced long ago. They danced in the lodge in this way. It's only post-reservation days where we start using an arbor, because we couldn't go to the Wind River Mountains or the Bighorn Mountains to get poles like these. These poles are 55 to 60, sometimes 65 foot long, but they're small at the end of the butt of the pole. If you try to get a 65 foot pole in the Black Hills, the butt of the pole will be so big you probably won't be able to reach your hands around it. But in these mountains, you can get 55 foot to 65 foot poles with the butt is only about 8 to 10 inches across. So that we could not get those poles anymore. So we switched to the way of using the arbor today. So this is the original way of dancing. And when we danced in this way, people said, you're dancing like the Crows, you're dancing like the Shoshones, you're dancing like the Arapahoes. But no, they have their lodges, but there's the Crows, they use 12 poles, and the Arapahoes use 16, and the Shoshones use 12 also. And the Arapahoes use 16, but we use 28 because 28 is a sacred number to us. There's 28 ribs and a buffalo. There's 28 days in the moon, the cycle of the moon. We use 28 poles in our sweat lodge. So the 28, 4 times 7 is a sacred number to us. So recently we haven't danced this way, but it came back again, this way of dancing. So you dance inside this lodge. This is a picture west of this is a picture south of White Clay, Nebraska, on a flat right before you go up into the pines. Now some church people own that land there. They're right by the highway. When you're going south, they're on the left side of the road. And this is right near a place called Larrabee Creek. So this was taken. The caption up there is not accurate. This was done in 1889. But this one says it's just before the Battle of Little Bighorn, but that's not true. During those times, right before the Battle of Little Bighorn, I'm pretty sure no Washicha with a camera could have came into that camp and escaped alive with his camera. So this is historically inaccurate. So this is the great holy man, Frank Fulcro. And the reason I show his picture is he single-handedly was one of the people that brought back to Sundance, along with him and a man named Pete Ketches and a man named Bill Schwagman, who was also called Bill Eagle Feathers. So grandfather Fulcro lobbied in Washington to return the Sundance. In 1928, it was given back to us publicly. In exchange for giving us back our Sundance, the government told us that if they give us back the Sundance, we had to accept the Indian Reorganization Act of 1934. So because they loved their ceremony and knew the importance of this ceremony, they agreed. So that's how this IRA government was forced upon us. They exchanged it for Sundance so that we could have Sundance. So they allowed it in 1928 to be the first public Sundances. So there was a Sundance that was east of Pine Ridge, and that Sundance went all the way into the early 70s. And then the same year in Rosebud, they revived their Sundance too. So where the Rosebud Fairgrounds are now, they had a Sundance there also in 1928. So they allowed us to have the Sundance, but without piercing. We couldn't pierce. So in 1952, they allowed the first public piercing. Again, Grandpa Fulcro had to go to Washington and lobby so that they would allow us to pierce our flesh. So the people in Washington said, yes, Mr. Fulcro, we'll give you back your Sundance, but remember, we're going to hold you liable for anybody that gets sick from it or dies from it, like from blood infection or anything. So he said, he told me personally that he had enough confidence in his medicine that so that he knew nothing would happen, and nothing did. So that paper is at the BIA office to this day, the paper that was given to him to allow the Sundance to pierce publicly again. So the first person that pierced publicly in 1951, around 1951, was Bill Eagle Feathers and two Cheyennes from Lame Deer, Northern Cheyennes. They came back from the Korean War and wanted to give thanks to the Creator for surviving. And one of the Cheyenne men danced on crutches. So there's some historical photographs of them. It shows them, these two men, and they both pierced along with William Schwagman. So this man danced on crutches and pierced to give thanks for coming back alive. So this is another picture of a grandfather, Fulcro, and he passed from this world when he was 99 years old. He was born right around the time of Wounded Knee Massacre, and he died in 1989, right before his 100th birthday. And this is a pipe that belonged to grandfather Sitting Bull that he used at the Sundance at Deer Medicine Rocks when he had the vision of the soldiers falling into camp. So the first man to have a vision of Sundance was Najutila, but Gablaya helped him. And it's estimated close to around 2,000 years ago when they first had the Sundance. And so they both danced with their cousin. His name is Trashagnupa. So he did the Hambalecha for 7 years, 4 days and nights, and he received 7 songs and all the instructions to do the ceremony. So the Wokichunze, what was told in that story is you are telling the spirits that you are serious about your Wokichunze, sacred vow. If you do not follow through with your Wokichunze, it can mean death, but this also shows your sincerity and seriousness of your vow if you you finish your Wokichunze. So when you opagi the stem first, you face it to the west. And opagi comes from the word opagi jeshni, means anything that has to occur for life to continue. Opagi jeshni, echamu, they said long ago. So they cut it short to opagi. So they say they gave the holy man opagi, but it comes from this concept, opagi jeshni, they say. So, and then whenever something is really, how do you say it, serious, someone is dying or there's some kind of a crisis among the people, they say, Chanupa hupagaluze, Chanupa hupagaluze, offering and holding your pipe to the 4 directions. So you hold that pipe and you put the stem down, and then you hold it down, and then you push it up into the sky like that as you face the directions. So, and the chanupa, it comes from the words tacha numpa, meaning 2. So it is representative of the ihupa, the stem of the pipe. The stem represents the male aspect, and the iya is the woman, the female side. So the belief is that when you put the stem into the bowl, then when you put these together, you are creating life. And all of creation goes into the pipe or the opagi cheshni. So the ihupa is, and also called the sinte, is the stem. And the iya is the bowl. So whenever you want life, like prayers or sickness or some kind of crisis, you put the stem to the bowl like that. So in life, the stem and the bowl united, just like humans, the male and the female unite, then there is life. So there are 4 parts to the chanupa: the oyake, which is what you put into your mouth to smoke; the chokata, which is the middle center; and the ihupa is the name of the stem overall. And then the oagale is the stem meets the ihupa. So that's the part that goes into the bowl, into the iyan, the stone. So that's called the oagale. So whenever you tie feathers on your chanupa, a lot of times it's not for decoration. Some people tie feathers on their chanupa, and these are the reasons. You tie on the mouthpiece, oyapke, you are seeking knowledge. So if you want to know something deeper, then you would tie a feather on the oyapke, where you put it into your mouth, where you smoke it. You tie a feather there, and you might hold your pipe that way and go on a vision quest or dance in the Sundance, and that way with your feather tied to the oyapke. In the Hambalecha or Wiwayaŋg Wac. If you tie it in the middle, chokata, you are praying for someone who is sick. So you want healing for somebody, then you tie it right in the middle. And then if you tie at the oagle, it is to make peace. So sometimes you see these pipes historically, there's feathers tied on them. And if you see where the feathers are tied, then you'll know what this person is praying about. Some people have a feather in all 3 places on their chanupas. I've seen that also. So there are 4 laws of the sacred pipe. The first one is chanupa kile yuha tohankchi o iye niwakanktahe, or huo. Will you ever lie with this pipe? Dakawachin chiekihe echaninktahe, or huo. Will you do what I ask of you with this pipe? And it says, Oyate ki ohini apathoka wichalos inktahe arhuo. Will you ever turn your back on the laws and the teaching of the pipe? In other words, will you always put the people first? Will you ever fool me with this pipe, or will you ever hurt the people? So whenever you see people offer the pipe, they're offering it 4 times. They're asking this question. So when somebody offers me the chanupa 4 times, they're asking me this question. They're saying, will you ever lie with this pipe? Will you do what I ask of you with this pipe? Will you ever turn your back on the laws and teachings of the pipe? Will you ever fool me with this pipe or hurt the people? And my answer would be yes or no, I will not do this. Then I would receive the pipe. So that's why you see people do this at the Sundance too. So there's 2 worlds in the Sundance: the outside world, the everyday world, and then the spiritual world that's inside that circle. So when they chanupanji patrankal Hmuya pichan, from that sacred world inside there where the spirits are and the wanagis of our ancestors and all the spiritual beings are inside that circle, when we push that pipe out, we're connecting that world to the everyday world out here. So the people that are there supporting and watching, they take that pipe and they smoke it in that world out there. So they're pushing those blessings out to the world outside. So whenever you chanupaki, bakintapi, bakinta your chanupa, only way to igluashte, right or wrong. The breath of the Iya and the Inipi provides that wopakinta. Apoya your chanupa. So if you make a mistake, they say, if you make some type of a mistake, then you take your chanupa into the sacred sweat lodge, the Inipi, and you steam it, and then you wipe it with sage, and then you ask for forgiveness. So that steam revitalizes and gives the power back to that sacred chanupa. And that also works for us as humans. So the Sundance is Wiwayaŋg Wac is a ceremony of life and renewal and rebirth. So the man on the tree represents fertility, as does the buffalo. The buffalo also is representative of the female side and also means life, nurturing, and food. The man is on the south side and the buffalo is on the north side. This is to make sure everything is balanced. So that's why the Sundancers dance in that way also. The women on the north side and the men on the south side. And that's because the world is balanced in that way. There's a female and there's a male in everything in creation. Plants, animals, even stones. There's stones that are male and there's stones that are female. So I had 2 stones. I have 2 stones that I put them in the bag. I left it for a whole year. And when I opened that bag, there were some little stones inside that bag. Those 2 stones created life, created some little stones. So I still have all of the stones. The cherry branch represents the thunderbird's nest, Wakan Trawahochbi. We do this to honor their power and ask for pity because in a second they can take our lives away. They also bring rain to us. They put oxygen and electricity into our bodies. Both are needed to breathe and to live. So their power on this earth is used in that way. So the thunder's nest is there, and the Wakian Oyate are blessing us by their presence in that Wakian Trawahochbi, that cherry branch bundle that's at the crutch of the tree. So this tree, the Sundance tree, represents life. There is a good part of life. There is bad part of life. There is life and there is death. And that fork in that tree represents that. And the buffalo heart and wasana is fed to the tree on its 4-day journey to the Nariata, the spirit world. Along with it, it takes our offerings of flags, tithes, but also our flesh offerings, chechpi wa unyapi. When the men pierce, it is called chechpi pachlokapi. And when women pierce, it's called wiyaka ipasisiapi, meaning to sew feathers to the arm. The women do not pierce because in that sense, like the men, because their pain and their bloodshed happens when a woman is giving birth, bringing life into this world. So that is, if you look at it, it's a type of a ceremony in South. So when a woman gives birth to life to a child, and she's in a ceremony. Chanupa opagipi, to pray with your chanupa and load it is, when you load your chanupa, your first pinch of tobacco goes to the west, because we believe that all of life came from the Thunder people. The lightning struck the earth, and from it grew the first form of life. So we believe that the Thunder beings, the unborn, and our relatives that have passed on reside there. First light was lightning. Life began from that first strike. The Chanupa was brought from the west by Pte Sant Hokahemi, daughter of Wahokpi, and she's the one that came to earth, and she is the first daughter of the moon, but also lives in the moon is Anung Ite, the spirit, the woman that made the four directions fight, the four brothers. She made Wiohpeata, Waziata, Wiohiampata, and Itokagata fight for her over her beauty. So the Wiohpeata and the Wiohiampata quit fighting. But to this day, the Waziata and Itokagata still fight. So right now, Wazia is winning. That's why it's wintertime. Pretty soon he's going to get weak and start losing towards the spring. And then when Itokagata becomes smart and starts winning, then it becomes summer. So the second pinch of tobacco goes to the north, Waziata, source of life of the Tatran Koyate who clothed and nourished us, gave us their lives so we could live. The cleansing wind, Onia, takes care of the illnesses and eradicates them. So that's the second pinch of tobacco. The third pinch of tobacco is to the east, Wiohiampata, the Hekakoyate, protectors of their nation live here. Ampowichakwe, Morning Star is here. She gives us woksape, helps women, Wahunupa, the two-legged, and helps to Tawaching Gluwash Akapi, to strengthen our minds. So they say that elk dreamers have medicines to heal women. They have strong medicines long ago. So there was hardly anything like cancer of the womb or cancer of the breast, or sicknesses that mostly inflict females. And then the fourth pinch of tobacco goes to the Hmuya, the Owl Nation that lives here. They watch over the night, and Hahepiki Awayankapi watch over the night in dreams. And the fifth pinch of tobacco goes to the sky, to Wambliglishka. So that's how we, and then the sixth pinch of tobacco goes to the earth, Unchi Makha. So that's the story of the Sundance, how it came to us. And I made it right to 1 hour, 3 minutes to spare. So thank you all for logging in, and I hope you enjoyed the story and the teachings within it.
Wopila.
Oh, Pilama.
I'm gone.
Aho.
Wopida chichi.
Aho.
Kakarik.
Aho.
Pilamayaye.
Aho.
Lamayaye.
Aho.
Pidamayaye.
Aho.
Wopila.
Aho.
Wopia.
Wopila.
Wupila.
Aho.
Wopila.
Wopila.
Kinanasungten.
Thank you.
Wopila, y'all.
Aho.
Gracias, Pilamayaye.
Aho.
Pilamayaye.
Aho.
Wupila.
Mm.
Wiwayaŋg Wac.
Aho, stelo toja.
Pidamayaye.
Aho,
Wopila Lexi.
aho, troska.
Wopila kaka.
Aho,
Wopila Chia.
aho,
Yeehaw. Thanks a lot.
aho.
Wopila lechi.
Wopila lo you pion.
Aho,
Nina Wopila.
aho,
Wopila.
aho.
Wopila lo.
Aho.
Wopila.
Aho.
Uncle, I have a real quick thing. I'm from Lawton, Oklahoma, and I go to lodge with all the people that speak very highly of you. Charlie Chalapa, I got Bone, and I got Herman, all those Sundancers that come up there. And they speak so highly of you. And so I'm so grateful I got to share a little bit of time with you. Wopila.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Wopila Te.
Aho,
Lexi.
aho. Aho.
Wopila Tanshi.
Aho.
Wopila kaka.
Wopila chichelo.
Aho.
Hello. Maybe it's possible you send the history for me, please.
What's that?
For those that are asking for a copy of this, there will be something that is put up online. And so if that's something that you want, please make sure your name and email address is in the chat. Thank you.
Wopila lo Tanshi. La Wopila.
Stelo troska.
Oh.
Pidamia tanka. Wopila chicha. Mitakuye.
Aho.
How do I get to my email? You to this.
I'm not sure. I have no idea. Opula Tanka, thank you, everybody. Have a good evening. Good night.
Good night.